There's no joking around with this. The Denver Broncos have landed their perfect joker with Evan Engram, and we are the DNVR Broncos podcast, ready to break it down. Henry Chisholm, Zach Stevens, and Evan Engram is a Denver Bronco, Henry.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. I mean, he really is a perfect fit. Again, so for me, I've never been like a huge Evan Engram fan because I love a tight end who can like get down there, block a defensive end, and then also go out and run route. Sean Payton doesn't care about that. Sean Payton has no interest in him blocking. And I mean, that's if you're looking for a joker, I mean, this really is that guy in every way, whether it's like the running up the sideline, one-handed catches, running up the seam, jumping over guys, or like all the screens and stuff they run with him. Just get the ball in his hands and let him work. It's again, this was the number one player on my big board for the Broncos. I thought he was a perfect fit, and he is now a Bronco.
And he is a perfect fit. And Henry, he's been a perfect fit since he was in college. When he was playing at Ole Miss, there were a lot of conversations like, man, this guy is such a good receiver. But is he just a receiver? Like, should we just convert him to a receiver? And the Giants drafted him in the first round, kept him at tight end, but he was really a receiver, but still called him a tight end. Then he goes to other places, goes to Jacksonville, has 114 catches 2 years ago. Just try to wrap your mind around that. For anyone to have 114 catches, let alone a tight end in Jacksonville.
Yep. Second most ever for a tight end.
What?
Second most ever for a tight end.
Insane. That just shows you right there with a mediocre Trevor Lawrence as well, with a system that isn't necessarily great, doesn't focus on a joker. He goes and does that. And now he joins the Denver Broncos, where he is a perfect fit for Sean Payton. When you look at Sean Payton, how crucial this joker spot is for him and how many elite ones. Henry, if Sean Payton touches a true joker and has him for many years, he plays at a Hall of Fame level. You look at Jeremy Shockey. You look at Jason Witten. You look at Jimmy Graham. And Jimmy Graham is a perfect example of what Evan Engram is going to be in this offense. Essentially a receiver that plays the tight end position. And Jimmy Graham was unstoppable in Sean Payton's offense with Drew Brees and really helped elevate Drew Brees. And when you look from 2011 to 2014, Jimmy Graham was a monster. In those 4 years, he averaged 89 catches, 1,099 yards, 12 touchdowns. And that was with a 16-game season. In a 17-game season, that averages out to 96 catches, almost 1,200 yards, and 13 touchdowns. This is an insane get for the Broncos. And there's no pump in the brakes now. This is all gas, no brakes. The Broncos are going all in with the first 48 hours of free agency right now.
Yeah, and I get that. Again, we've had this talk before. I don't even think they're all in. And I think that's a good thing because they aren't mortgaging the future. You know, I did my mock offseason, tried to guess, like, here's what I think the Broncos will do. I gave them Nick Bolton, Cam Bynum, and Zach Ertz. What they actually did was hit those same positions, but with Dre Greenlaw, Talanoa Hufanga, Evan Engram. I had them for the three guys I chose, year one cap hits of about $20.195 million. Assuming these contracts are structured the way they usually structure contracts, like 2-year deals, 36% in the first year, 3-year deals, 18% in the first year. Assuming that's the case, this will cost about 21.96. And so what they aren't doing is mortgaging the future and needing to like free up all this extra cap space to make these things happen. If they wanted to, if they call this kind of it, sign some like backup type players, sign maybe a couple guys who could compete for jobs, they'll wind up not needing to borrow any money from the future. They can do all this and fit it under the salary cap, which is awesome. And I think like the allocation of resources, these were the three spots where you could really use an upgrade, and they nailed it. They hit it out of the park with three perfect fits.
And Henry, you are going to write a film room on this. And if
Yes.
you want to see a very in-depth film room, we already got the tracker updated with all this. You want to learn more about Evan Engram, you can find that right now over at the DNVR.com and become a diehard. Not only does it really support us, but it gets you access to all of our coverage that we've got going on. And in fact, we're giving you a big time sale to celebrate this free agency frenzy. And boy, a frenzy has it been for the Broncos right now. Instead of $79.99 for an annual pass, you get it for $36 right now. I don't know how long this is going on for, so you want to jump in now, get all of our content. We've already got a Hufanga film room up. We've already got a Dre Greenlaw film room up. We have so many things over at thednvr.com. Plus, you get a free t-shirt. Plus, you also get a discount at the bar. You can pick up your t-shirt actually at the bar if you want. So make sure to become a diehard. It helps us out, and you get so much content for an entire season. It's not just Broncos. You get it for all of our coverage as well. So make sure to become a diehard over at thednvr.com. Henry, there's two other things that just put the cherry on top of this perfect ice cream sundae. And one of them, the Broncos got a much better deal on Evan Engram than I was expecting. The numbers just came out. 2 years, $23 million with $16.5 million fully guaranteed at signing. And I got to say, congratulations to Sean Payton, to George Payton for working this one out. We talked about it earlier today on the DNVR Broncos podcast, how Evan Engram, he visited the Broncos. The Broncos wined and dined him Sunday night. Then he stayed over in Denver. Then he visited the Broncos facility on Monday. And it was like, man, this is all but a done deal. They just got to lock him in. And then all of a sudden, he leaves. He leaves the building without a contract, and people are worried. People are freaking out. Like, how do you let him leave? Does this mean that it's over for him? And then Evan Engram goes to the Chargers yesterday and visits them in Los Angeles, and he goes to a division rival and visits them, and that is just not looking good. And then today, he signed. So we thought at that point, like, man, he's just trying to drive his price up right now. And then we see Juwan Johnson, who's a guy that had his career year last year, only 500 receiving yards, way
5 starts.
Way worse than what Evan Engram brings to the table. He gets $10 million a season. So we're thinking, man, Evan Ingram's probably trying to drive this price up to $15 million per season. I guess not. The Broncos land him for $11.5 million. Just an incredible deal. $16.5 million guaranteed, which essentially means he's going to be on the team for 2 years. But he's not 37 years old. He just turned 30 years old. So this is a fantastic deal for the Broncos. One. And then the second reason why this is amazing, Henry, is he could have signed with the Chargers. He visited the Chargers yesterday. So the Broncos beat out the Chargers for a big time weapon. Instead of having to go against Evan Engram for 2 games every single season, Broncos now get him for 17 games.
Yeah, and the 2 years part I think is huge because as much as we talk about how tight ends usually age well and having like a 33, 34-year-old tight end, no big deal. It is true that Evan Ingram's just as much receiver as he is tight end, and some of that like crafty blocking, like old man, grown man, dad strength maybe doesn't apply so much to him. So getting him in his age 31 and 32 seasons and not having to worry about like, 33-year-old Evan Engram, what's he still going to have? No big deal. And of course, you can always just sign him again, bring him back. I agree. Like, I thought the money would be more, but I also thought that you'd have that third year in there, which is really the thing that, could make you look back on this deal and say, it didn't work out because you had to just pay him a little bit too long.
Yeah, exactly. And the only concern with Engram was this shoulder injury that he had. Obviously, like I said, he was with the Broncos for over 24 hours earlier this week. That checked out to be fine. He only played in 9 games last year, but in those 9 games, Henry, he still caught 47 passes, almost 400 yards. So this is a guy that produces year in and year out. He's been to 2 different teams with the Giants, was in a couple different schemes there, was with the Jaguars, and I have no doubt he is going to be maximized the most he's ever been and be in as perfect as he's ever been. And Henry, this is just also such a good piece for Bo Nix. Look, Bo Nix fell in love with Courtland Sutton last year. And that's why the Broncos, I believe, are going to extend Courtland Sutton, is because of how good of chemistry they had. This is a guy that might take over Courtland Sutton for having just the best chemistry with Bo, because he is going to be, one, the ultimate safety net. You look at the 114 catches that he had with the Jags in 2023. He's not going for 1,500 yards. These aren't all deep passes. These are the safety nets. These are the chain movers. These are when everything's falling apart, he finds Evan Engram. That chemistry there is going to be so key, and they're going to have it together. And this is a guy that's going to help Bo so much. Plus, I mean, it's just a staple in Sean Payton's offense. So I love this for every reason.
Yeah, and I'm curious about that. Like, we've all done like a little bit of research on Evan Engram, and I had a chance to go back and watch him play against the 49ers with Ufunga and Dre Greenlaw, just see what that looked like. But there are some of those questions, like, you mentioned 114 catches, only 900 yards, which, I mean, great season, but with 114 catches, it's kind of an interesting combination. He finished 40th out of the 43 tight ends who played the most that season in average depth of target. So that just means you're getting the short stuff over and over again. I'm curious, like, is that because he's just a release valve? Is it because they ran so many screens for him, and so he's getting the ball behind the line of scrimmage so often it skews the numbers? There are a bunch of those sorts of things that I'm excited to spend the rest of the day just going back and watching Evan, seeing how it all played out, and seeing like why some of these kind of quirky numbers are there. Or things like, that 2023 season, he was an inline tight end 33% of the time. Like your true tight end, like lined up end of line of scrimmage. The other 67%, he was, in the slot or out wide, which is how Sean Payton uses these sorts of guys. They play him in the slot. They play him as a receiver. You hope they put a linebacker on him. Even if they put a safety on him, you say, we can win this matchup as well. It's just when they put the corner on, hopefully you're just too big, and that's what really makes you the true mismatch. But also, it's a run situation. You can block him. This year, though, because his numbers were down this year, even before the injury, he was an inline tight end 48% of the time. And so you see that shift from let's use him as a joker to let's use him as a tight end just a little bit more. And you see that dip in production. So there's some of those quirky things where you see like Sean could really maximize how Evan Engram is used. And we've seen results from using him like that in the past. So again, I obviously haven't had time to like dig in and find a whole bunch of that fun stat stuff, but I'm just going to sit here, watch some Starch Madness, watch some other college basketball, watch some Evan Engram for the next like 8 hours, right, for the next few after that. And it's going to be a really good day. Because again, like, this is the number one guy on my board for the Broncos. Like, there is no more perfect fit than Evan Engram for this offense.
And so make sure to become a diehard to be able to see Henry's film room when it drops later tonight. Also, if you're tuning in with us, hit us with a thumbs up on YouTube. That helps us a lot, shows us that you like these emergency shows, and we really appreciate that. It's a very easy way to continue to support us. And Henry, you talked about the fit and the role and how last year they used him a little more as an inline tight end. That might have been the biggest selling point for Evan Engram to sign with the Broncos. Is I could see him going to Los Angeles and Jim Harbaugh being like, okay, we're going to have you play inside. You're going to block, and then you'll leak out for some catches. While Sean just says, no. You're going to catch 1,000 yards. You're going to have your first 1,000-yard season this season. He's been very close, 963 2 seasons ago. Sean says, we're going to unleash you. You're going to be the best receiving tight end in the NFL. And Henry, that is not an exaggeration. If Sean Payton told Evan Engram that is something that can absolutely happen with the Broncos this season. You look, he can easily have 1,100 receiving yards. Like I said, Jimmy Graham had 1,300 receiving yards, almost 1,400 receiving yards 1 year. That is the type of season if Evan Engram's able to stay healthy. And for the most part, he's played in over 12 games, I think 4 of the last 5 seasons outside of last year. If he's able to stay healthy, this is going to be a guy that could lead the league in receiving from a tight end position. He can lead the Broncos in receiving in terms of catches and yards and touchdowns. Henry, just looking at some of his film just quickly, he is such a red zone threat. It is crazy how good he is in the red zone, in the end zone, how he's able to bring ridiculously consistent contested catches down, one-hand catches where there's no room there, but the quarterback throws it up and he brings it down. He is going to be a game changer all over the field, whether he's spread out wide, whether he's lined up in the backfield, or whether he's just kind of in that slot position. And I just want to remind people one more time, because a lot of people for weeks now have been saying, oh, the Broncos really need a receiver. Broncos really need a receiver. Broncos really need a receiver. And I've been reminding people, Sean Payton likes this receiver group. And he also doesn't think that he needs to pay the receiver room $50 million. I do think they're going to pay Courtland Sutton to stay. That's the only guy that you're paying right now. What he wanted was this exact position, a joker, which is essentially a receiving tight end or a receiving running back that can play that slot position. That's exactly what Evan Engram's going to be for this team.
Yeah, and people might be sick of me saying the stat because it's been over and over, and I've written it and done all sorts of stuff. But again, per 17 games in Evan Engram's career, he has 775 yards. Like, that's, if he plays a healthy season, that's what you expect at this point in his career. Last year, that would have been the second most of any Bronco. The year before, it would have been the most of any Bronco. Like, there's a real chance that he shows up and all of a sudden you say, like, oh, receiver 1, Courtland Sutton, receiver 2, Evan Engram. And then if you want, you can just look at the past 3 years when he got away from the Giants and all the horrible, horrible things that he had to deal with in New York. And the 3 years he got to play with Jacksonville, which again, like, maybe not the greatest offense, but at least Trevor Lawrence, Doug Peterson knows how to use the tight end. And that jumps up to 827 yards. With Sean Payton, that could go way up. And maybe I'm too high on this one, but it just makes me wonder. 2023, he was third in the NFL in receiving yards for a tight end. I don't think there's any reason he can't improve upon that when you see how they used him and just how perfectly that fits with what Sean Payton wants to do, and hopefully in a more healthy offense. Like, I'd be curious. Maybe we can get our friends over at Bet365 to give us a little head-to-head matchup between Brock Bowers and Evan Engram in receiving yards next year, because like, even money, you probably say, yeah, the safe bet is Brock Bowers. That's the smart money. But once you get into that, like, plus 130, plus 150, then you start to get really tempted and say, it's, Bowers is probably going to get 1,000 yards. Evan Ingram's never done it, but I wouldn't be surprised in this offense just how it's set up and how seamless that fit is, and the pieces around him with Vele and Mims, and how it all should really just funnel through Engram. It could be a really big year for him.
Oh, Henry, we need to get those odds because it's not going to be plus 130. People are just going crazy for Brock Bowers and sleeping on Evan Engram. You get like plus 400 for Evan Engram, and that would be an incredible bet. The odds would be fantastic to take there. Henry, you mentioned his average over 17 games season is 775, something right around there. I am pounding the table on the over. I would smash that. Henry, I think he's going to be 1,000-yard receiver this season if he's able to stay healthy. I think there's no doubt in my mind about that. In fact, I would take the odds of, because I think you get plus money, I'd take the odds on him just being straight up the Broncos' leading receiver on this team. He is going to be such a dangerous weapon. The question's now going to be, he wore 17 during his time with the Jags, were 88 with his time with the Giants. That's the only question that I have with Evan Engram. What number is he going to wear in Denver? Because everything else I feel so comfortable about with what he brings. And Henry, one more, there's just so many pieces of good news that just keep stacking on top of each other. And the final one, at least for today, that I want to talk about is this plugs another hole. The Broncos are not desperate for a tight end anymore. Broncos weren't desperate for a safety, but they went out and filled what they thought was a hole. Inside linebacker, they were desperate for one more guy next to Alex Singleton. Went out and plugged that hole with Drake Greenlaw. The Broncos have 0 holes on defense. 0. Think about that. It's March 12th, and the Broncos don't have a single hole on defense, and they still have the draft. On offense, they had 2 kind of big holes going into this offseason. It was tight end and it was running back. Broncos have not made a move at the running back spot yet. And really, whatever they do in free agency, they're probably not going to be able to truly plug that hole with Aaron Jones off the board, with Najee going to the Chargers. So they're going to have 1 hole going into the draft, which is just incredible right now. Broncos don't have to go Colson Loveland. Broncos don't have to be desperate and trade up to get Tyler Warren. They don't have to be just devastated when both of those guys are off the board when the Broncos pick at 20. If one of those guys falls to him, sure, you can add a second tight end and just be extra
Absolutely.
dangerous at that position, but you don't have to now. The Broncos only have one hole on March 12th moving forward. That is really good news, and credit to George Payton for putting this roster together the way he has.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just like the good old days. It's like the Broncos that we grew up with, where they didn't have holes because they only went into the offseason with one or two, and so you could just patch them up. It's been this past 10 years where it's like, oh, you got 7 things you got to do in free agency. Realistically, maybe you can get 4 done in a good offseason, and then you're desperate in the draft. I mean, it used to be back growing up, they were good, well put together football team who could go into the offseason pretty free to improve places. Like, you didn't have to worry about this sort of stuff. And now they're getting back into that tier where, the Eagles don't have much to do because they had good depth. They don't have much to worry about. They lose a couple pieces. They'll be fine patching those holes. You look at as much as we hate the Chiefs, honestly, they might have a couple more holes at this point, but you have like the top 5-10 teams where you're well managed, well put together. You've made smart decisions in the past. You have the resources to patch things up. Like, this is the way it should be. You shouldn't be going into the draft with holes. And they've hit a home run in this offseason. It's so fun to think back to like the day before free agency began and all the Broncos fans, not all of them, but a very vocal group saying, well, the Broncos are doing nothing. What are they sitting on their hands? What is this? Like, just wait. Like, we've seen George Payton and Sean Payton for a few years together. Don't worry about them sitting on their hands. That's the opposite of what they do. So I'm excited. Trade up for Genty, and this team could be really, really, really good.
I think they're already going to be really, really, really good. And the good thing is there's really, really, really good running backs in the draft, led by Ashton Genty, but there's some other really good ones as well, where that's all the Broncos have to do. Get one of those guys, and there's tons of them in this draft, and they are going to be cooking on offense. They're going to be shutting people down on defense. We talked about it yesterday on the DNVR Broncos podcast, Henry. We all believe that this Broncos defense is the best in the NFL right now. And now they just added another dangerous weapon for a very up-and-coming Bo Nix on this side. We have Jacob Weddle chime in, who says, not only did the Broncos plug these holes, but they did it with some of the best players at their position. Evan Engram is definitely one of the best receiving tight ends in the NFL. Dre Greenlaw is definitely, when healthy, one of the best inside linebackers in the NFL. And Hufanga, we saw it. He was a first-team All-Pro 2 years ago or a couple of years ago when he was able to stay healthy for a full 17 games. So Broncos absolutely doing that. And to put a bow on this, they're doing it responsibly too. They are doing it with good contracts. They got that injury discount with Greenlaw and Hufanga, and they somehow got a discount on Engram. I don't know what it was. Maybe they got him on the shoulder injury discount from last year as well, but somehow they landed him on a great deal as well. We have a super chat that I want to hit really quick coming in from our friend Rashawn, who says, trade up for Genty and sign Cooper Kupp. The Super Bowl window is open. And that's exactly what the Broncos are telling us with their moves. Henry, I've heard from behind the scenes that the Broncos definitely believe that this is their Super Bowl window now, with a good quarterback who's on a rookie contract right now.
Yep.
And then now they're showing us that they truly believe that this is their Super Bowl window by going out and signing these guys. Henry, the more moves the Broncos make, the more this reminds me of the 2013-2014 offseason that they had, where they went out and signed TJ Ward, signed DeMarcus Ware, signed Aqib Talib. This is that offseason for this version of the Broncos. And man, it is exciting.
Yeah. I mean, draft Ashton Genty, sign Cooper Kupp, sign me up. I said, like, when people ask about salary cap space, we don't know exactly what that looks like because we don't have the full details and what the year one cap hit is or any of that sort of stuff. But like I said, I mean, they spent about $1.5 million more for these 3 positions than I did in the mock off season, assuming contracts are fairly normal. And I didn't have to borrow any money from the future. There was like $8 or $9 million left to go into the season. The rest of the license, bring back DJ Jones, all that stuff is pretty similar. If they add Cooper Kupp, then all of a sudden you might have to, give Mike McGlinchey the restructure, pick up an extra $10 million in cap space this year. But in terms of like the Russ dead cap hit, all that sort of stuff, league wide, what the trends are in terms of like borrowing cap space from the future, they would be in the very, very lowest group, very lowest tier in the NFL in terms of like irresponsible spending by pushing things to the future if this really is the offseason, even if they do add like a Cooper Kupp or something.
I mean, Henry, it shows that perfect balance in how George Payton and Sean Payton are working together. George Payton is viewed as a guy that wants to be very responsible and do things the right way for now and the future. And Sean Payton is viewed as a guy that wants to win now, wants to go in all in right now every single year. And boy, that chemistry just seems to be lining up perfectly between these two right now.
Yeah, and I mean it's one of those things where like you're investing in the positions where it makes sense to take advantage of where the market is. Like go conservative. Say Mark Ingram tier 2 tight end. Maybe he's not George Kittle, maybe he's not one of those guys. Honestly, maybe he is. But you look at Dre Greenlaw, tier 2 tight end or linebacker. You know, it's not necessarily your Bobby Wagner or whoever your all pros are any given year. Talanoa Hufanga, an all pro himself coming off injuries, call him like tier 2 safety. But you're buying into that safety market, which is not nearly what the cornerback market is. You're buying into the linebacker market where, again, it tops out at $20 million, not like the 35, 36 you're seeing at other positions. You're tapping into the tight end market where top guys are making less than $20 million. Like you're picking these value positions, which is the smart way to go about business. I mean, that's just the economic approach to find the market inefficiency, which is that these guys are providing more value than the top highest paid players at some other positions, receiver, cornerback. You know, if you wanted the equivalent to Evan Engram, maybe that's a Chris Godwin, you know, which all of a sudden there, you got to double the price that you're paying. And instead you're getting probably just as valuable production for half the price. I mean, we saw the Eagles rode that to the Super Bowl. You know, you go and get Saquon Barkley at $12 million a year. You could have also gone and gotten a top tier receiver for $35 million a year, but that's just not the value. So to be able to pick your spots and take advantage of where the market is, this really is genius stuff. And you could argue, say like, I don't know, like Talanoa Hufanga, $15 million injury, maybe it should be more like $12 million. Those little like marginal differences compared to the margins between paying top tier receivers and top tier, like, that little stuff isn't that big of a deal if that's the price to be investing in the right things.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, Sean Payton and George Payton and Greg Penner, they're not joking around. They landed a key piece with this Joker role, and the Broncos are off and running, and they're looking for a Super Bowl right now. That's simply what these moves are showing us, and it is a great time to be in Broncos country. Hit us with a thumbs up. We're out of here tomorrow. We are going to be back on the show at 11 a.m., and I'll tell you what, we're going to break this move down with a former NFL player who was teammates for 2 seasons with Evan Engram. He was teammates with Hufanga. He was teammates with Greenlaw. He was teammates with Sherfield. No better person to break all of these guys down with and really get into the nitty-gritty with Evan Engram on the Broncos now.
Any notable coaches he played for?
He played for Sean Payton as well.
Oh, you don't say. Okay. Huh.
Yes, exactly. And maybe even Vance Joseph. It's perfect connection here. So make sure to stay tuned tomorrow. DNVR Broncos Podcast on YouTube, anywhere you find your podcast as well. Hit us with a thumbs up. We appreciate everyone tuning in for this emergency show. Broncos are going all in. Stay tuned with us to be on this ride. Have a terrific Wednesday. Happy new league year as well. We'll see you tomorrow. DNVR Broncos Podcast, 11 a.m.
We all silly like the mayor.